third quarter goes down. At least they called this one. Asia Wilson creams Lexie Hall like she did 5 times in game 1. Peggy Hammock get 15 calls in a row and one goes another way and she starts screaming and crying. Asia Wilson doesn't like Lexie Hall. She's always pushing her, but that's an illegal screen, and then Lexie Hall gets called for a foul.
What if I told you that a playoff game wasn't decided by skill, strategy, or even star power, but by something far more controversial? That beneath the surface of those clean, crisp statistics lay a story of brutal physicality, questionable whistles, and a level of grit that defies normal basketball logic. This isn't just about who won or lost. This is about how a single game became a battlefield, and how the Indiana Fever, despite being outnumbered in more ways than one, discovered a strength they never knew they had. The scene was Las Vegas for Game 2 of the WNBA semifinals. The Aces had just suffered a stunning 16-point defeat on their home court days earlier, and the basketball world was watching to see how they'd respond. What unfolded wasn't the beautiful game we expect from playoff basketball. Instead, it became something far more raw, more contentious, and ultimately more revealing about both teams.
It feels like a physical game every game. Feels like it's been a physical season. But yes, I think, I feel like I've been on the ground a little bit more this series so far. But we just keep getting back up, so that's all you can really.
The Aces secured a convincing 90-68 victory to even the series, but the final score reveals shockingly little about the true nature of this battle. Aya Wilson, the 4-time MVP, bounced back from a rare off night with 25 points and 9 rebounds, adding a playoff career-high 5 steals in a dominant performance that more closely resembled the Aces that ended the regular season on a 16-game winning streak. But behind those impressive numbers lies a more complicated story, one of relentless physical encounters, a staggering 41 total fouls, and a third quarter that saw 16 fouls alone that systematically dismantled any chance for Indiana to find their rhythm. Meanwhile, the shorthanded Fever entered Game 2 with 6 players out with injuries, including superstar Caitlin Clark and another, Lexie Hull, playing at clearly less than full health. This is a story the box score doesn't tell. This is about how a game that was supposed to be about basketball skill became a test of survival, and how what happened in Vegas won't stay in Vegas, because it's fueling a fire that's about to explode in Indianapolis.
Take that. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's one. That's one. That's one. Yeah. Fever, go. That ain't song and dance to me, man. I'm just grateful, man. I love basketball. I love playing with my team. So.
The Las Vegas Aces came into Game 2 with something to prove, and on paper, they delivered spectacularly. After their stunning 89-73 loss in Game 1, the Aces returned to form with a 90-68 victory that showcased why they've been considered championship favorites. Aya Wilson's performance was nothing short remarkable. She made 10 of 18 shots after her dismal 6 for 22 performance in the opener, adding those 25 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 steals to her playoff resume. She wasn't alone in her efforts. Nalissa Smith added an efficient 18 points on 7 of 9 shooting, while Jackie Young scored 13. And both Jewel Lloyd and Dana Evans contributed 10 points each. Chelsea Gray facilitated the offense masterfully with 10 assists, demonstrating the kind of balanced offensive attack that made the Aces so dangerous during their historic winning streak. But statistics can be deceiving. While the Aces undoubtedly executed their game plan effectively, the context surrounding those numbers tells a more complicated story.
And the Las Vegas Aces lose Game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish.
The Fever, already missing 6 players due to injury, including their superstar Caitlin Clark, found themselves battling not just the Aces, but what many perceived as an uneven officiating landscape. The 41 total fouls called created a stop-and-start game that favored Las Vegas' approach, while systematically dismantling Indiana's preferred pace and rhythm. For a team that thrives in transition and ball movement, these constant interruptions proved devastating to their offensive flow. The numbers that truly stand out from Game 2 aren't just in the scoring column. Consider the transformation of Kelsey Mitchell, who torched the Aces for 34 points in Game 1, but was held to just 13 points on 4 of 14 shooting in Game 2. This dramatic shift speaks volumes about the defensive adjustments made by Las Vegas, adjustments that often ventured into physically questionable territory.
Cannot blindside somebody and set a screen on them without enough time for letting the player being screened react. And then look at this. This one, their arms lock up, but you gotta let go at some point. Like, you can't bring the person closer to you and just stay locked in while the offensive player is trying to get the rebound. But we know A'ja Wilson only.
Meanwhile, Odyssey Sims led the Fever with 18 points, with Lexie Hull adding 15 despite her back injury, and Aaliyah Boston contributing 10 points. These individual efforts weren't enough to overcome the Aces' onslaught, but they demonstrated resilience that would become a recurring theme for Indiana throughout this hard-fought series. The Aces' victory in Game 2 wasn't just about superior execution. It was about controlling the game's tempo through whatever means necessary. By embracing an intensely physical style of play that tested the boundaries of the rules, Las Vegas successfully transformed what should have been a basketball contest into something resembling a war of attrition. This approach, while effective in securing the win, would raise serious questions about sustainability as the series shifted to Indiana's home court, where the Fever would have a crowd support and potentially a more favorable whistle. What separates intense playoff basketball from something that crosses a line? The Fever Aces series pushed this question to its absolute limit, with Game 2 featuring a staggering 41 total fouls, and a third quarter that saw 16 fouls called alone. This wasn't the graceful, free-flowing game that basketball purists love. It was a brutal, physical confrontation that left players on both sides battered and bruised.
Why don't you think you were able to find any flow? And when that was the case, what are you trying to do to jumpstart things, maybe on the defense?
Well, it's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. I mean, it just really is. And when they're at the free throw line, we can't get up and down the floor. And that's a challenge. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively. We didn't counter that with our off-ball actions or with our back cuts. So they took us out of our comfort zone. I mean, offense is about rhythm. It's about timing. It's about spacing. We allowed them to do that, and they kept.
For the Indiana Fever, who entered the game already dealing with significant injury concerns, this physical style of play presented both a challenge and an opportunity to demonstrate their toughness. The most compelling evidence of this excessive physicality came from an unlikely source, Aces coach Becky Hammond herself. Even in victory, Hammond expressed frustration with the rough nature of the matchup, suggesting that the game had crossed from physically intense into something more concerning. When the winning coach complains about the physicality, it's worth asking whether what we witnessed was still basketball or had become something else entirely. This sentiment was echoed by players on both sides, with many noting that the constant stoppages made it nearly impossible to establish any offensive rhythm or flow.
Physicality's out of control, that's for sure. I mean, you can bump and grab a wide receiver in the NFL for those first 5 yards, but you can do it in the W for the whole half court. You put two hands on somebody like that, it should be an automatic foul. They have the freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. There's no freedom. And I'm not saying that we're not fouling too. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's.
For the Fever, the physical punishment was disproportionately damaging. Lexie Hull, who was already questionable with back injury and wore a brace while on the bench, found herself targeted repeatedly by the Aces' aggressive defense. Despite her compromised physical state, Hull managed to score 15 points, but the cause was evident as she frequently found herself on the floor after hard contact. The same punishing treatment was delivered to Aaliyah Boston, who absorbed countless blows in the paint with minimal offensive foul calls in her favor. What appeared on the surface as a dominant Aces performance revealed itself upon closer inspection to be a systematic breakdown of Indiana's offensive flow through whatever means necessary. The most controversial aspect of this physical game was how inconsistently the rules seemed to be applied. A'ja Wilson accumulated impressive statistics, 25 points, 9 rebounds, 5 steals, while employing a physical style that often went unpunished. Meanwhile, Fever players found themselves whistled for far less obvious infractions. This discrepancy didn't go unnoticed by fans and analysts, who pointed out that the very definition of foul seemed to change depending on which team was committing it.
See, obviously you were a late add to the injury report today. Just how are you feeling this morning with your back, and what do you have to do to be able to play?
I mean, I'm feeling sore still, but I think Just a lot of treatment, trying to get, our bodies as ready as we can be. Part of playoffs, I think, for everyone is it's the end of the season. Everyone's a little fatigued, everyone's a little sore. So just trying to go out there and do the best I can. A lot of treatment with our trainers. I'm really thankful for them to spend a lot of time with me today, a lot of time with me yesterday, getting me ready for it.
As the series shifts to Indianapolis, all eyes will be on whether this physical style will be permitted to continue, or whether the officials will establish clearer boundaries to protect the players and the integrity of the game. In Game 1 of the semifinals, Kelsey Mitchell wasn't just good, she was unstoppable. Her 34-point explosion represented playoff basketball at its finest, showcasing a scoring arsenal that left the Aces defense looking helpless and unprepared. She attacked from every possible angle, catch and shoot opportunities off screens, isolation plays, transition baskets, demonstrating why she's considered one of the most dynamic offensive threats in the WNBA.
Now the starting point guard, and here's Hull, an early test. Great sign because her shooting has been off. Yes. Mitchell. Short. Hull with another offensive rebound, turn, shoots, scores. 2 of their last 3. Hull again, yes. Oh.
That performance gave the Fever a stunning road victory and sent a clear message. Indiana couldn't count it out, even against the mighty Aces. Game 2 told a completely different story. Mitchell's point total plummeted from 34 to just 13, with her shooting efficiency collapsing to a dismal 4 of 14 from the field. This dramatic turnaround didn't happen by accident. The Aces implemented a deliberate, systematic approach to eliminate Mitchell from Indiana's offensive equation. They face-guard her even when she didn't have the ball, deployed aggressive double teams whenever she touched it, and made sure every cut through the lane came with a physical price. The strategy was simple: make anyone else beat us, but eliminate Mitchell at all costs. The effectiveness of this approach went beyond mere statistics. By forcing the ball out of Mitchell's hands, Las Vegas successfully disrupted the entire offensive ecosystem of the Fever. Indiana's rhythm, which had been so precise and effective in Game 1, completely disappeared in Game 2. The constant pressure on their primary scorer created hesitation and uncertainty throughout the roster, with players often looking passive and unsure when to attack. The Aces understood that stopping Mitchell wasn't just about limiting her point total. It was about dismantling the confidence and flow of Indiana's entire offensive system. What made this strategic adjustment particularly devastating was how it interacted with the game's physical nature. The officials' willingness to permit aggressive defense allowed Las Vegas to push the boundaries of what constituted legal defense. Hard hedges on screens became full-body checks, closeouts became collisions, and cuts through the lane turned into obstacle courses of contact. Mitchell found herself not just offended but physically manhandled, with a cumulative effect clearly taking its toll as the game progressed. The Aces demonstrated that they had learned their lesson from Game 1, but the question remains whether this aggressive, physical approach to containing Mitchell will be as effective in Indianapolis, where the Fever will have the energy of their home crowd behind them. While the spotlight naturally falls on stars like Aya Wilson and Kelsey Mitchell, the true revelation of this playoff series has been the extraordinary resilience of Indiana's role players. Facing adversity that would break most teams, the Fever supporting cast demonstrated a level of toughness and determination that deserves recognition. With 6 players already sidelined due to injury, including their superstar Caitlin Clark, Indiana entered Game 2 operating at a significant personnel disadvantage. Yet rather than capitulate to the reigning champions, they fought with a courage that transformed what could have been a blowout into a testament to their character. The most inspiring performance came from Lexie Hull, who entered Game 2 listed as questionable with a back injury she sustained in the series opener. Most players in her position would have taken the night off, especially with the series shifting to Indianapolis for the next games. Instead, Hull not only suited up, but delivered a spectacular shooting display, drilling 5 three-pointers to tie a Fever playoff record. Her 15-point contribution came despite visible discomfort and the protective brace she wore while on the bench, embodying the next woman up mentality that defines successful playoff teams. After the game, Hull acknowledged her condition with characteristic understatement. "I'm feeling sore still, we're just pushing through." This simple statement belied the incredible pain tolerance and mental fortitude required to perform at that level while injured. Alongside Hull, Aaliyah Boston delivered a performance that won't fully show up in the box score. Her 10 points and 13 rebounds represent a solid statistical contribution, but they don't capture the punishment she absorbed in the paint. Boston found herself battling not just Aya Wilson, but what often felt like the entire Las Vegas frontcourt, taking blows to the ribs and back on nearly every possession. Despite this physical onslaught, she continued to battle for position and secure rebounds, demonstrating a level of mental toughness that defies her relatively young career. In many ways, Boston's performance encapsulated Indiana's night, productive on the surface, but requiring far more effort and endurance than should reasonably be expected. Then there was Odyssey Sims, who led the Fever with 18 points despite facing constant defensive pressure and physical coverage. Sims repeatedly attacked the basket against taller defenders, absorbing contact that often went uncalled while still managing to convert difficult shots. Her ability to create offense in a game that offered little rhythm was remarkable, providing Indiana with crucial scoring bursts when the Aces threatened to turn the game into a complete rout. Together, Hull, Boston, and Sims formed a trio of unexpected contributors who refused to back down despite the overwhelming odds against them. Their performances suggest that while the Fever may be shorthanded, they're far from short on heart, a quality that could prove decisive as the series shifts to friendlier territory. The relationship between officiating and playoff basketball is always complicated, but in the Fever Aces series, it has become a central character in the drama. With 41 total fouls called in Game 2, 16 in the third quarter alone, the referees' whistles effectively dictated the flow, pace, and ultimately the outcome of the contest. For a Fever team that relies on rhythm and ball movement, these constant interruptions proved devastating to their offensive system. Every time Indiana showed signs of building momentum, another whistle would halt play, preventing them from establishing any sustained pressure on the Aces. This officiating approach created what analysts often call a choppy game, one characterized by frequent stoppages, limited fast break opportunities, and half-court sets that often evolved into isolation basketball. For the Aces, this style played to their strengths, allowing them to set their defense and leverage their individual talents in one-on-one situations. For the Fever, it systematically dismantled the preferred style of unselfish, free-flowing offense. The statistical evidence tells a clear story. When Indiana managed to get into their offensive sets quickly, they found quality shots. When the game bogged down into half-court wrestling matches, they struggled immensely. Perhaps the most revealing aspect of the officiating was how differently similar actions were judged depending on which team committed them. Aya Wilson frequently operated in the paint with physicality that went largely unpunished, while Aaliyah Boston found herself whistled for far less obvious infractions on the other end. This discrepancy didn't go unnoticed by players, coaches, or fans, creating a pervasive sense of frustration throughout the Fever roster. As one player noted after the game, "It's hard for us to find flow when there's a foul call every 10 seconds. They were much more aggressive and physical defensively, and we didn't counter that." This statement captures the impossible position Indiana found themselves in, adjusting to both the Aces' physicality and the officials' interpretation of that physicality. The upcoming games in Indianapolis will test whether this officiating pattern continues or adjusts to a new environment. History suggests that home teams often enjoy slightly more favorable treatment from officials, though this effect is typically subtle. For the Fever, the key will be adapting to whatever style of officiating emerges in Game 3. If the officials continue to permit aggressive, physical defense, Indiana must find ways to match that physicality without compromising their offensive principles. If the whistle tightens, they'll need to adjust their defensive approach accordingly. The team that best adapts not just to their opponent, but to the officiating style will likely emerge victorious in this increasingly contentious series. As the series shifts to Gamebridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, the dynamic of the semifinal matchup undergoes a fundamental transformation. What was once a David versus Goliath story now becomes something far more compelling, a battle between a wounded but resilient team and a reigning champion facing their first real test of the playoffs. The Fever have proven they can compete with the Aces, even defeating them convincingly in Game 1. Now, with the energy of their home crowd behind them, Indiana has an opportunity to leverage what players and coaches call the sixth man to potentially swing the series in their favor. The statistics supporting home court advantage in professional basketball are undeniable, but for the Indiana Fever, this advantage extends beyond mere numbers. Gainbridge Fieldhouse has developed a reputation as one of the most intimidating environments for visiting teams in the WNBA, with crowds that remain engaged and vocal throughout the game. These fans don't just respond to big plays, they actively influence the flow of the game, rising in anticipation during defensive stands and creating an atmosphere that can unsettle even the most experienced opponents. As Lexie Hall noted when looking ahead to returning home, our fans, they show up and they show out. We definitely feed off of their energy. For the Aces, their experience in Indianapolis this season has been less than stellar, a fact acknowledged even by their own coach Becky Hammon. This history matters because playoff basketball is as much a mental game as a physical one. The confidence that comes from familiar surroundings, routine, and supportive cheers can transform a team's performance, particularly when facing adversity. For the Fever, who battled through not just the Aces but what they perceive as an uneven officiating landscape in Las Vegas, returning home represents more than a change of venue. It offers a return of fairness and a chance to play their style without constant interruption. The most significant impact of home court advantage often reveals itself in moments of momentum. In Las Vegas, every time Indiana threatened to make a run, either the Aces or the officials had an answer to stifle their progress. In Indianapolis, the dynamic flips. The Fever will have the crowd behind them to amplify their big plays and potentially influence officiating decisions on close calls. This support could prove particularly valuable for players like Aaliyah Boston, who absorbed significant punishment in the paint with minimal foul calls in her favor. With thousands of voices reacting to every post move and rebound chase, officials may find themselves more attuned to the physicality happening in the trenches. As the series moves forward, this shift in environment could be the factor that ultimately determines which team advances to the WNBA Finals. The Fever Aces semifinal represents more than just a playoff series. It's a microcosm of the larger narratives shaping the WNBA's present and future. On one side stands the Las Vegas Aces, an established powerhouse featuring the league's most recognizable superstar in Aya Wilson. On the other, the Indiana Fever, a team built around young talent and missing their most famous player in Caitlin Clark, yet demonstrating the depth and resilience that suggests a bright future regardless of who's on the court. How this series unfolds could have implications far beyond which team advances to the finals. The contrast in team construction between these franchises couldn't be more striking. The Aces represent a mature championship core at the peak of their powers, having developed chemistry through years of playing together. The Fever, despite their injury challenges, showcase a blend of emerging talent and veteran role players still learning how to win together. That Indiana has pushed Las Vegas to this extent, even securing a dominant road victory in Game 1, signals that the league's competitive balance may be shifting. The era of predictable championship outcomes could be giving way to a new paradigm where any playoff team, when healthy and executing, can compete for a title. The extraordinary television ratings and media attention surrounding this series, despite Caitlin Clark's absence, challenges a narrative that the WNBA's popularity revolves entirely around a single superstar. While Clark's presence would undoubtedly have drawn even more viewers, the compelling basketball and dramatic storylines of this series have proven that the product itself, when given proper exposure, can captivate audiences. The physical nature of the games, the controversial officiating, and the unexpected performances from role players have all contributed to a narrative richness that extends far beyond individual star power. Perhaps most importantly, this series demonstrates the incredible depth of talent across the WNBA roster. With 6 players injured, including their biggest star, the Fever have relied on contributions from unexpected sources. Lexie Hall playing through back pain to hit crucial threes, Aaliyah Boston battling against taller opponents in the paint, Odyssey Sims creating offense against relentless defensive pressure. These performances highlight that the league features compelling players and stories beyond a handful of names that dominate headlines. As the WNBA continues to grow in popularity and financial investment, this series may be remembered as a turning point, the moment when the league's narrative expanded from individual superstars to compelling team dynamics that make basketball at its best so captivating. As this hard-fought semifinal series shift to Indianapolis with the score tied 1-1, both teams face critical strategic decisions that could determine who advances to the WNBA Finals. The Aces demonstrated in Game 2 that they can adjust effectively, implementing a game plan that neutralized Kelsey Mitchell while leveraging their interior advantage through Aya Wilson. The Fever, despite being shorthanded, revealed a level of resilience and tactical flexibility that should concern the defending champions. The team that best adapts their approach for the upcoming games will likely secure a spot in the championship series. For Las Vegas, the key strategic question is whether their Game 2 approach is sustainable on the road. The intense physical defense that proved so effective in limiting Mitchell also carries significant risk. Foul trouble that could sideline key players during crucial moments. In Indianapolis, where officials may be influenced by the home crowd, the Aces will need to demonstrate more discipline in their defensive approach while maintaining their aggressive mentality. Offensively, they'll need to continue diversifying their scoring beyond Wilson, as they did effectively in Game 2 with contributions from Alyssa Smith, Jackie Young, and Jewel Lloyd. The balanced attack that produced 90 points in Game 2 represents their ideal formula for success. Indiana faces different strategic challenges, primarily centered around offensive creation, with Mitchell being consistently trapped and double-teamed. The emergence of Lexie Hull as a three-point threat provides a crucial counter to the Aces' defensive approach, forcing them to respect perimeter shooting and creating more space for Boston to operate inside. The Fever must continue developing these secondary offensive options while finding creative ways to free Mitchell for the scoring opportunities she needs to be effective. Defensively, they'll need to solve the riddle of Io Wilson without compromising their ability to defend Las Vegas' other weapons, a challenge that becomes particularly difficult when Wilson is operating at the level she displayed in Game 2. Perhaps the most intriguing strategic variable involves the potential return of injured players as the series progresses. While Caitlin Clark remains unlikely to suit up, any additional reinforcements will provide Indiana with much-needed depth against a Las Vegas team that effectively rotates multiple offensive threats. The Fever's ability to manage minutes and fatigue could become increasingly important as the series extends to potentially 4 or 5 games. For both teams, the coaching staff's adjustments between games, particularly how they address the physical nature of the series and the inconsistent officiating, may prove as important as any individual performance on the court. In a series that's evenly matched, the smallest strategic edge could make the difference between celebration and disappointment. What makes playoff basketball truly compelling isn't just the athletic excellence on display, but the human stories that unfold under maximum pressure. The Fever Aces series has provided these in abundance, from players battling through pain to teams overcoming adversity that extends far beyond the basketball court. These human elements often get lost in post-game analysis focused on statistics and strategy, yet they frequently determine which team prevails when talent alone isn't enough to separate competitors. The story of Lexie Hull playing through a back injury to tie a franchise playoff record for three-pointers isn't just a compelling sidebar. It's a testament to the sacrifice and commitment that defines championship-level athletes. Similarly, Aaliyah Boston's willingness to absorb physical punishment in the paint without retaliation demonstrated maturity beyond her years, a quality that can't be measured by traditional statistics, but invariably earns respect from teammates and opponents alike. These individual stories of perseverance collectively create a team identity that can overcome significant talent disparities, as the Fever have demonstrated throughout the series. For the Aces, the human narrative revolves around pressure and expectation. As defending champions riding a 16-game winning streak entering the playoffs, anything less than a dominant title run would be considered a failure. This weight of expectation manifests differently for each player. For Io Wilson, it means carrying the offensive load even when her shot isn't falling. For role players, it means performing consistently despite limited opportunities. How Las Vegas manages these psychological pressures, particularly when playing in a hostile road environment, will significantly impact their performance as the series progresses. Perhaps the most overlooked human element in this series involves the coaching staffs and their relationships with the players. Indiana's ability to keep their team focused and competitive despite being severely shorthanded speaks volumes about the culture they built and the trust between coaches and players. Similarly, the Aces' dramatic turnaround between games 1 and 2 demonstrates their coaching staff's ability to make effective adjustments, and their players' willingness to implement those changes under playoff pressure. These intangible factors, trust, culture, mental fortitude, often prove decisive in series as closely contested, reminding us that basketball remains fundamentally a human endeavor, despite the increasing focus on analytics and statistics. If you're enjoying this deep dive into one of the most compelling playoff series in recent WNBA history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that goes beyond the box score. We have plenty more coverage coming as this incredible series continues to unfold. One thing is certain, the outcome of this series will resonate far beyond which team advances to the finals. It has already challenged our assumptions about competitive balance in the WNBA, demonstrated the league's compelling depth of talent beyond its biggest stars, and provided basketball fans with exactly the kind of drama that makes playoff basketball so captivating. As these two teams prepare for critical games games in Indianapolis, they carry with them not just their championship aspirations, but the knowledge that they're participating in something special, a series that people will remember and discuss for years to come. If you found this breakdown insightful and want to support our coverage of women's basketball beyond the headlines, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our analysis of Game 3 and beyond. Drop a comment below letting us know your predictions for the rest of the series. We love hearing from engaged basketball fans who appreciate the game as much as we do.